We have the very latest in news, business and sports, but first things first, let's look at the highlights. Tonight.
Na tumesema ya kwamba all consolidators sasa lazima wawe vetted by KRA, lazima wawe gazetted, na hawa tu ndio wananchi wataweza kufanya biashara na wao.
2 visits by the president at the inland container depot, and now traders could get their goods. And ongoing disarmament exercise in the Rift Valley to continue as scheduled. Police IG adamant, political leaders concerned.
Kwani kulikuwa na plan ya kuja kukonganisha community yote hii mbili, kwanza kwa kuua Wapokot kwanza, ama ni nini ilikuwa inafanyika?
Plus, 2 more suspects linked to Jared Otieno arraigned on fresh charges. Otieno and 15 others released on bond in a different case. Also tonight, Nairobi governor makes good his threat to flatten alleged land grabbers' property in retaliation.
NTV Tonight with Dennis Okari.
A very good evening and thank you for joining us in this news broadcast from the 47 counties and around the world. Our sign language presenter tonight is David Agondoa. We start off with our first story, where small and medium-scale traders who had their goods held up at the inland container depot in Embakasi could receive their goods as soon as next month after the president ordered the release of their goods. The president, however, said the goods would only be released after following the laid-down procedures. He also ordered the fresh vetting of consolidators who import goods for both Kenya and neighboring countries. Brenda Wanga reports.
For the second time in as many days, President Uhuru Kenyatta was at the inland container depot in Nairobi's Embakasi area.
Kwa sababu tumekuwa tukiongea na ni vizuri niseme hapa.
His visits here to find out what has been the cause of delay in releasing over 1,000 containers of goods imported by small-scale and medium-scale traders. His visit and subsequent meetings with stakeholders revealing that the delays could have been caused by unscrupulous businessmen who were keen to evade paying tax. He also found out that some paperwork failed to distinguish goods meant for the local market and those for export.
Zingine ambazo zimekuweko ni kwa sababu kuna wengine ambao wanafanya hii mambo ya consolidation, wanalete mizigo, lakini wameweka container, wanasema hii mizigo inaenda Uganda, hii mizigo inaenda South Sudan, wakijaribu kuhepa kulipa ushuru. Hiyo ni poa kweli?
The president now says the operations will only be permitted after the government cleans up the consolidators' functions. The news of the intervention undoubtedly good for the traders who had for weeks been held in limbo for failure to clear their goods at the inland container depot. Only last week, the traders, largely from Nairobi, had reached out to county leaders, including Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko, to seek audience with the highest office in the land to try and break the standoff between them and the Kenya Revenue Authority. The president, while granting the traders reprieve, warned against the importation of counterfeit goods into the country, a practice he says is not hurting just the government's revenue streams but was also robbing young entrepreneurs of the chance to earn a living.
Lazima tuvet na tuhakikishe ya kwamba hawa ambao walikuwa wanajaribu kufanya hiyo biashara ya panya roots tuwaweke kando, tutumie watu ambao ni haki, mizigo ikuje, tulipe ushuru, mizigo itoke haraka, na ndio wananchi waweze kuendelea na biashara zao. Si kweli? Hiyo ndio tunaita win-win. So that is key to what we have agreed. Na mimi sina shaka ya kwamba na tumekubaliana tutakutana tena baada ya wiki 3 tukijua ya kwamba kazi hiyo tumemaliza.
He was accompanied to the ICD by Interior CS Fred Matiang'i, PS Karanja, Kibisho, and heads of the multi-agency task force that was probing the traders' complaints. Meanwhile, more Kenya Revenue Authority staff based at the headquarters in Nairobi have been in police custody since Friday. Staff from the Customs and Domestic Tax departments were rounded up as the DCI continues with investigations into the fraud at the tax agency. Brenda Wanga, NTV.
Security matters now. The Inspector General of Police, Hilary Mutyambai, now says the ongoing disarmament exercise and digitization of all firearms in the hands of civilians in the Rift Valley will go on as scheduled, and there will be no extension. In a strong-worded press release, the IG described the violence that has resulted in deaths in some parts of the Rift Valley as politically instigated intercommunal tension, and also warns that anyone found in possession of unregistered firearms will be treated as a combatant. Ken Mijungu reports.
These valleys of breathtaking beauty at times offer no welcoming feel. These communities have for long been living under the shadow of the gun. In the latest episode of violence, an unknown number of armed bandits struck along the border of West Pokot and Elgeyo Marakwet counties last evening. They started shooting indiscriminately and killed one person. Another was left critically injured.
Mturuhusu sasa kama Pokot sisi tujihami na tujilinde wenyewe. Kwa sababu sasa ni hasara sasa kila mara tunapoteza watu.
These are the latest echoes from the insecure north. The government, in a move to check the tide of unregistered firearms in the wrong hands, say it will disarm all civilians, including police reservists. In a strong-worded statement, Police Inspector General Hilary Mutyambai urged the police reservists to submit themselves to verification and the registration process that will involve ballistic analysis by the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, labeling of firearms, and even shooting practices. The police believe this will help eliminate the illegal guns in the wrong hands, even as they admit that they cannot account for weapons issued in the last 50 years. The Rift Valley is the first point of call, and Mutyambai says disarming police reservists will be priority in the North Rift. An advance team, however, tell of a cartel ring that has been behind the incidents of banditry and cattle rustling, using unregistered reservists to harm civilians. So far, police say more than 110,000 rounds of ammunition have been recovered from the National Police Reservists. This move has, however, been met by protests from leaders from the Rift Valley who have protested the operation, saying it will leave its citizens more exposed.
We want to tell those persons who have come to manage the national security, and particularly the new entrants of the IG, that they must get out of Nairobi, they must get out of Jogo House, they must get out of OP.
Wajambasi wenye wametoka Marakwet wajue inji hii siyo ya bandits na siyo ya lawlessness, kuna peace and order na kuna sheria lazima ifuatwe.
Just last week, there were attacks reported along the West Pokot Turkana and the West Pokot Elgeyo Marakwet borders. A General Service Unit officer was shot at the Ponu area. A civilian was also killed at the Sarimaj. The police, however, want the politicians and other leaders in the community from the targeted regions to keep off the disarmament exercise and instead foster peaceful coexistence. Ken Mijungu, NTV.
To our continued coverage of the fake gold story, two suspects believed to be Jared Otieno's aides have been charged separately in yet another fake gold case involving another foreigner. Meanwhile, another case against Jared Otieno and 15 other accused persons implicated in another fake gold case came up in the same court where the suspects were released on bond. NTV's Seth Olale was at the Milimani Law Courts and followed the day's proceedings.
Philip Nation alias Aroko and Robert Ouko alias Maxwell Oyuga pleaded not guilty to the charge of conspiracy to defraud a Dubai businessman of 26 million shillings. The suspects, who are believed to be close associates of Jared Otieno, are accused of pretending that they were in a position to ship 200 kilograms of gold to one Juan Carlos Cadeno Gomez from Nairobi to Dubai between the 6th and the 31st of October 2018. The deal to dupe Juan Carlos Cadeno Gomez, a director of Global Solutions Consulting Limited Company, was made in a house along Vihiga Road off Mwingi Road, Kileleshwa area in Nairobi. The suspects, who denied obtaining the money by false pretense, will know on Tuesday if the court will grant them bail. Their case will come up before Milimani Chief Magistrate Francis Andai. Nation and Ouko were also charged in another fake gold case that also involves Jared Otieno. The three are accused of conspiring to defraud a foreign national by the name Southern Chanthav Wong 300 million shillings by falsely pretending that they had genuine gold for sale. They were released on a 1.5 million shillings cash bail by Chief Magistrate Francis Andai. Two other suspects implicated in the JKIA fake gold seizure are still in police custody. They are expected to be arraigned this week when they will take plea. Seth Olale, NTV at the Milimani Law Courts, Nairobi County.
A mediation committee formed by both houses of parliament to find a solution to the stalemate over the division of revenue bill hasn't made much progress as both sides are still clinging to their hardline positions. Though both sides have made some concessions, they are yet to agree on how much the counties should get, as the Senate insists on a figure of 327 billion shillings, while the National Assembly is stuck at 310 billion shillings. The dragged-out impasse now threatens to stall operations at both levels of government, as the bill outlines how the national government and the county government should share the monies. At the same time, Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru was before the Senate to defend her expenditure, and where she alleged that there's a plot by the national government to deduct monies from counties without their knowledge. Waiguru blamed IFMIS for the errors that saw counties' budget for national government functions and claims someone at Treasury intentionally sabotaged the 14 counties. NTV's political affairs reporter Kennedy Moredi reports. Well, we'll be having more details of that story and what was happening during that Senate meeting and the grilling of Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru much later on. We want to move on now to other stories, and sadly so, where 3 people died and 7 others seriously injured after a public service vehicle he was traveling in rammed a university bus in Maragua, Murang'a County. One of the victims, identified as Assistant Chief Michael Ndwati in charge of the Mbugua sublocation, is said to have been coming from a meeting in Kenol and was headed home when the accident happened. The accident caused a major snarl-up along the busy Kenol-Murang'a Road. Area Police Boss Josephat Kenyo said the matatu was trying to overtake the bus but rammed it to avoid hitting a motorcycle. The 7 who were injured were rushed to the Murang'a and Maragua district hospitals. The bodies of the 4 Kenyan pilgrims that died after a matatu rammed them in Uganda on Sunday have arrived in the country. The 4 who died were in the company of over 100 pilgrims who are on a journey to the Namugongo Martyrs Shrine in Uganda.
A community untied in grief and gathered in a collective sense of loss. 4 of their own were killed in a road accident while on a journey beyond the borders to the Namugongo Martyrs Shrine in Uganda. That journey now a new grim marker of grief for the families left behind after a matatu rammed into a group of about 100 pilgrims on Sunday, killing 4 on the spot. Sarah Were and Evelyn Okatek, who hailed from Nambale in Busia County, were among the 4 killed. They are said to have been members of a Kisoko Catholic parish in Busia County, while the other 2 were from the Naitiri Catholic parish in Bungoma County.
Kwa hakika ni hali ya machozi kwa upande wangu na familia yangu na pia kanisa letu Katoliki Kenya nzima.
Kama familia tumeshukuru sana serikali ya Uganda ikishirikiana na serikali ya Kenya kwa msaada ambao wametupa, wakafikisha majeruhi wote na mili Busia, Kenya.
Hiyo mili ishapelekwa jana ya kule Naitiri. Mili ya Sarah na Evelyn iko Busia.
Some of those that were injured in the road accident at Bugodi village along Iganga-Jinja Highway in Uganda's Mayuge district are still receiving treatment at the same hospital.
So far we received five people from Uganda who had been involved in the accident. 3 had minor injuries, they were treated and they were discharged. So far we have remained with 2, 1 man and 1 woman who are undergoing treatment.
We apologize for that lip sync issue on that story. But let's go back to our earlier story, the Senate, where Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru was before the Senate to defend her expenditure and where she alleged that there's a plot by the national government to deduct monies from counties without their knowledge. Waiguru blamed IFMIS for the errors that saw counties' budgets for the national government functions and claims someone at Treasury intentionally sabotaged the 14 counties. NTV's political affairs reporter Kennedy Murithi reports.
Almost every governor that has appeared before the Senate Public Accounts and Investments Committee has blamed IFMIS for some of the money discrepancies that have been found in their counties. But today, Governor Waiguru, who is one of those that came up with the idea of using that system, insists that it is waterproof. And if there are questions that need to be asked with regards to monies that have been lost or discrepancies that are being found in that system, then they have to be attributed to human error.
The system is as good as the people who use it. So I will not defend officers, for example, if they do not use the system as they ought, because bottom line, they are the ones who are with a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that they enter every entry into the system. And therefore, when they don't, then they are the ones who are held responsible for that. But you cannot say it's the system, because the system cannot enter data by itself.
According to Waiguru, the National Treasury has questions to answer on how 14 counties, including her own, allocated funds for State House functions. Waiguru, who was put to task by the Senate Public Accounts and Investments Committee, argues in her defense that there was a scheme to either siphon monies from counties or reallocate monies from counties without involvement of county heads to State House or other state bodies, thus the errors. She claims the IFMIS system may have been tampered with in an attempt to exonerate the counties from claims they misused that money, amounting to billions of shillings.
I have a problem when the system is usually blamed for things that are actually man-made.
The Senate committee insists that counties must adhere to the usage of IFMIS as the sole source of accounting and that they will flag any misuse of public funds.
The ones who have insisted on every governor who has come here that we can only believe IFMIS numbers. And for Kirinyaga, we were expecting that we are going to believe IFMIS numbers. You understand the system, you understand what the promise was, you understand how to make it work. If it cannot work for Kirinyaga, then it means that we might reach the conclusion that IFMIS is a system that needs to be thought of again.
The Auditor General had flagged some payments that had been made outside the system.
Let's switch focus to the conflict in Marsabit, which has resulted in deaths. And the Upper Eastern Regional Commissioner, Isaiah Nakoru, is warning politicians and leaders against fanning the flames of violence. He said the government is investigating the root cause of the violence and any politician found culpable will be arrested.
In Marsabit's bleak and seemingly lifeless expanse, life here has for many long months been marked by death. The government is now pointing fingers at those they believe are responsible for the campaign of violence and bloodletting.
We expect leaders to provide leadership, provide directions to their people. What is happening in the Marsabit is that the kind of directions the leaders are providing is a direction of violence, of hatred.
The government says it is shining the spotlight on some leaders from the area who they say have been inciting the people to gain political mileage. Anyone found culpable will be held accountable. He spoke as he led a regional security delegation of officials to the county after it witnessed one of the bloodiest weeks yet. 2 herders were mercilessly slaughtered while asleep in Shaba Hills last Thursday, and in a suspected counterattack, 3 people, 2 women and a child lost their lives in the hands of gunmen in Manyata Konsobanchale on Friday morning. Reports indicate that about 40 people have died in perceived ethnic attacks in a span of 3 months in this year alone. Despite claims that the rise in insecurity was due to recent disarming of the National Police reservists, the government says it will have to exhaust all possible strategies before returning the guns. Anita Nkonge, NTV.
Business operators at what was formerly the Simas Club along Kenyatta Avenue in Nairobi started the week on a bad footing after their stalls were demolished by county workers. Patrick Nderitu, the owner of the premises, clashed with Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko on Saturday after he allegedly sent goons to destroy a church and school in Buruburu. Nderitu claims he is the owner of the land in Buruburu. NTV's Sharon Baranga reports.
Businessmen who have been operating in this structure on this land that formerly hosted Simas along Kenyatta Avenue for the last 1 year reported to their businesses early morning, but were met with county workers intent on flattening this structure. Without notice and within 2 hours, their businesses and life's work had been reduced to rubble.
Wakatuzuia kwanza tusifungue, hakuna notice tumeambiwa. Tungekuwa tumeambiwa notice tungejua mapema hatuingii kazi, lakini wameingia tukigafla.
We are very sad and we don't even know what to do. In the Kenya of today, mwananchi wa chini kabisa wakati kama huu, umechukua malon, umeomba pesa, umeanza biashara, baada ya mwaka moja nyumba imebomolewa.
These businessmen were perhaps the pawns in the chess match between the owner of the business complex, Patrick Nderitu, and Nairobi Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko. The two clashed after Nderitu allegedly sent goons to demolish a church and a school in Buruburu Phase 5. Nderitu claims ownership of the land and has a certificate of lease that shows he leased the land in Buruburu in 1983. But the county says it is not aware of his proof of ownership. In what appears to be a retaliatory move, county workers brought down his premises on grounds that the structures on the land were illegal. And this after the governor made good the threat he made this weekend.
I became suspicious because after an hour, sijapewa court order. A friend of mine I know is a land grabber. He's called Nderitu. He's a resident of here Phase 4. Akasema is the one who is doing this exercise, so I should not come here. Nikamwambia wacha upuzi. Did you alert the county that you're coming to do an eviction here? Akasema hapana, mdosi usikuje. I called him. I mean, he called me. After calling the OCPD, he called me. And we know him. Ndo ako hapo Simas ameka car wash. He has no approvals even for that car wash. So vile amebomoa hii shule, even his car wash itaenda chini.
This piece of land has often courted controversy. In March of 2018, Simas, a club that had been operational for years, was demolished over unpaid land rates. But it's also not the first time that the governor has employed the tit-for-tat tactic. In January this year, the governor was caught in a bitter exchange with the owner of Marble Ark Hotel in Nairobi, and who had also claimed ownership to a piece of land in Kayole and demolished property developed on it. He demolished a part of the Marble Ark in retaliation.
I've already confirmed the title is fake. Kwanza, you have used a fake title to mislead a court of law.
Last year, Kiambu County Governor Ferdinand Waititu and Sonko had an altercation over Waititu's wife, who was arrested and charged with occupying a building without proper permits from the county government. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
For the first time in more than 10 years, Kenya has reached out to the World Bank for an urgent loan in the form of budget support, signaling the gravity of the country's rapidly deteriorating cash flow situation that is characterized by falling revenues and worsening debt service obligations. On the day, President Uhuru Kenyatta warned against tax evasion that is estimated to run into tens of billions of shillings annually. The Daily Nation learnt that the World Bank's board is set to make a decision on whether or not to approve Kenya's application for a 75 billion shillings loan. In the Daily Nation tomorrow, read about Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich's new begging mission abroad and why not everybody at the World Bank is keen to lend Kenya a single cent. Do not miss your copy. We take a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay with us. President Uhuru Kenyatta's nominees to different embassies and high commissions abroad, but one of the nominees to South Korea is facing headwinds. As it turns out, she has dual citizenship. Mwende Mwinzi, who in the 2017 elections ran on a Jubilee ticket for the Mwingi West parliamentary elections, is also a U.S. citizen and was nominated as Kenya's ambassador to South Korea. But her dual citizenship could complicate her approval for the job. Mwinzi, who spoke to NTV on phone, however, expressed confidence that she will be approved, saying the law that forbids dual citizenship for state officers does not apply to ambassadors. Former EACC Deputy CEO Michael Mubere, who has been nominated to head the Dublin station in Ireland, may also not have it easy when he faces Parliament tomorrow morning. And in news from the courts, a suspended High Court Judge, Justice Martin Muya, has challenged the decision by his employer, the Judicial Service Commission, to remove him from office at the High Court until his case is heard and determined. Justice Muya claims the report by JSC that recommended his suspension was fundamentally flawed and cannot be relied upon. He further claims he was not accorded a fair hearing by the JSC as enshrined in the Constitution. Early this month, the JSC forwarded a petition to President Uhuru Kenyatta asking him to form a tribunal to investigate the conduct of 3 judges, among them Justice Muya, who is accused of gross misconduct. The Employment and Labour Relations Court has extended the order stopping the implementation of Housing Fund levy that was to take effect on the 9th of this month. Justice Maureen Onyango said the new levies should not be implemented until the case challenging its implementation is concluded. The judge told the 10 parties in the now consolidated case to file their responses. The case will be mentioned on the 10th of June for further direction. And a witness in a case against former Kenya Pipeline Company Managing Director Shem Ochodho has told the court that he wrote to former Finance Minister David Miraria asking for permission to borrow 2 billion shillings from an external lender. Ochodho, who was sacked from KPC in December 2004, is accused of conspiring with former chairman Maurice Dantes to defraud the company of 827 million shillings between May 2003 and June 2004. The alleged fraud was committed in deals with local and foreign companies. Elsewhere, 2 businessmen who are acquitted of the murder of slain Mombasa tycoon Ibrahim Akasha's son want the civil suit to proceed in the absence of Baktash Akasha, who is being held in the U.S. The 2, a Kenyan and a Serbian, protested the delay in the start of their case, which they say has been postponed 4 times. They have sued the late Akasha's widow, 2 sons, a former police officer, and the Attorney General for malicious prosecution and unlawful imprisonment. Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka is confident that the war against corruption will be won. Speaking during a burial ceremony in Makindu, Makueni County, Kalonzo said that no one should be spared in the fight against graft. He also urged politicians to focus on uniting Kenyans and developing the country instead of succession politics.
Mtu asija akasema kabila letu laonewa, ama ndeni yetu yaonewa, ama kikundi hiki, ama kikundi kile. We have to deliver this nation. And I want to assure the people of this county and Kenyans, kufuatilia mambo haya ya kuunganisha wa Kenya pamoja, ndugu Rais Uhuru Kenyatta, ndugu Raila, mimi na wenzetu. And I want to encourage all of us tuzingatie hapo. I want to tell you mbele iko sawa.
To more fun stuff, it was an exciting and fun-filled weekend for NTV viewers in the Mount Kenya region as the NTV Roadshow toured the region. Loyal viewers and Daily Nation readers from the region were rewarded with various gifts as they interacted with various Nation Media Group products. Melita Oletenges reports.
The 3-day roadshow traversed Embu, Meru, Isiolo and Laikipia counties, giving residents a chance to interact with their favorite comedians.
Kuna watu wengine sasa kama wa nyumbani wanadhani tu watu kama wenye wanakuwa kwa TV hawatokangi. Unajua unaona mtu lakini ukimwona live unaona yenyewe mtu ni mtu wa kawaida. So pia wewe unaona unaweza make it.
Daily Nation ni gazeti ya kitaifa. Na sasa ile unaisoma unaelewa vile Kenya imeendelea. Umeelewa ile corruption inafanyika.
The roadshow done in collaboration with London distillers started off in Embu, Chuka and Chogoria before pitching tent in Kobo, Meru and Maua. On the third day, the team toured Isiolo, Timau and Nanyuki. Residents were treated to music, dance and comedy by TV stars DJ Shiti and Awiti of the Real Househelps of Kawangware.
This is the best roadshow ever. Now, when watch NTV because we are turning your world. Your favorite channel by force, by fire.
Wanasema wanaamuka na gazeti ambao ni Daily Nation, alafu baada hapo wanaenda direct to NTV kwa sababu hapa pia wanaweza watch the only station in Kenya ambao una watch and win.
NTV viewers received free merchandise including t-shirts and shopping vouchers, with one lucky viewer walking away with a television set. The roadshow is a show of commitment by the Nation Media Group to its viewers and readers as the company celebrates 60 years in the media industry. Milita Oletenges, NTV.
On that note, let's take another break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay with us. Time now for business. The first ever United Nations Habitat General Assembly kicked off in Nairobi with the need to address the gulf between the number of decent houses available for occupation and the demand coming into sharp focus. New concepts such as the need for building affordable houses that also take into account environmentally friendly cooling systems were brought forth. Alex Mwangi sat in through the first session of the Assembly and compiled this report.
Shelter is one of the basic human needs, and its provision in adequate quantities has proved problematic for modern-day governments.
The overwhelming majority of people living in cities do not breathe clean air, and nearly 1 billion people could live in cities with perennial water shortages in 2050.
I am aware that progress has been slow, largely in part because of financial and institutional constraints at UN Habitat, but also due to member states' inefficient capacity to interpret, implement, and report on progress on urban agenda.
It is estimated that 70% of the world's population will be living in cities by the year 2050. Currently, 1 in 3 houses in urban settlements globally is in a slum area.
These trends call for collective efforts to be innovative and bold in the way we approach and implement urban growth, so that tomorrow's cities provide opportunities and better living conditions for all.
Creative solutions that encompass issues such as preserving the cultural practices of communities were proposed.
And in Africa, I have found that we are not listening enough to the cultural values of our communities and representing them on the visual and practical levels that we see in urbanization. Africans at heart are communal people. How is that represented in blocks of flats with tiny spaces for communities?
The challenge of providing sufficient decent houses for the world's growing population, and in particular the youth, remains a thorn in the flesh for policymakers the world over. It is hoped that the strategies and plans that will come out from this inaugural UN Habitat General Assembly, coupled with political will from various governments around the world, will be sufficient to stem the looming housing crisis in years to come. Alex Mwangi, NTV.
Well, let's go to another story here where the cost of lending will remain unchanged, at least for another month, following the Monetary Policy Committee's decision to retain the central bank rate at 9%. Now, in its monthly update, the MPC said the month-on-month overall inflation remained within the target range in March and April, but there is need to keep monitoring the situation as the cost of food is projected to rise as a result of failed rains and the rising cost of fuel. The Monetary Policy Committee also notes that credit to the private sector has recorded a 4.9% growth, one of the fastest since the interest rate cap law was put in place. Well, the government is targeting to raise 5 billion shillings infrastructural bond in the next 3 years through the M. Akiba Bond online saving platform. Central Depository and Settlement Corporation Chief Executive Rose Mambo says that the bond, whose minimum investment is 3,000 shillings, has an interest rate of 10% per annum. Speaking at Machakos People's Park on Monday, where the corporation, in conjunction with the Nairobi Securities Exchange, launched the 4th edition of the M. Akiba Bond, Mambo said the platform had made it easy for everyone to invest since it is available on mobile phones.
Excellency, allow me, because yes, you can see the hands. Yes, let's.
You buy to hold, which is the best thing to do so that you can earn the interest. But if at all you need your money back and you want to exit, you can exit at any time on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. It is tax-free.
Hakuna product inakupatia 10% net kama M. Akiba. Today you have a lot of money in your phone which is not earning any money. And if you're able to put that money in M. Akiba, you're earning 10% net. So it's a savings product. So
Highway Africa Kenya is set to merge its operations with Ecotel International Properties Limited in a deal that will see Ecotel get the majority stake of the Kenyan ICT firm. The merger, aimed at strengthening the two ICT service providers' presence in the region, will see Ecotel have an 80% share of the Kenyan ICT firm. The transaction forms part of a deal between Eco and Gondwana International Networks in October 2018, which saw Eco merge with the internet service providers' operations across Africa. Jean is the majority shareholder in Highway Africa. Diamond Trust has reported an 8% growth in its profit before tax in the first quarter of the 2019 to 2.9 billion shillings. Customer deposits grew to 275 billion shillings, while the non-performing loan book declined marginally to 12.4 billion shillings from 13.2 billion posted in a similar period last year. The results were released days after shareholders approved the appointment of Linus Gitai as the new board chairman following the retirement of Abdul Samji, who had served in the position for 9 years. Increased taxation on small-scale enterprises is pushing many traders out of business. This is according to the Kenyan National Chamber of Commerce and Industry Chairman-elect Richard Ngatia, who says the agency is in consultation with the national and county governments to address the matter. Speaking when he toured Murang'a County, Ngatia cited that some of the licenses are duplicated and it is better for businesses to be issued with just one operating license. He called on county assemblies to set up structured policies that will see all business stakeholders involved in the decision-making process to protect businesses from being exploited. This was Ngati's first public engagement since his election. The present directors assured members they will push for policies and laws that will revive the manufacturing sector, claiming that the sector is currently affected by increased importation of goods which can be made locally. Now, coffee farmers in Western Kenya, which comprises 13 counties, have been challenged to improve on the quality of their coffee beans if they are to reap better value for their produce. The farmers have been put through training on good crop husbandry to ensure good returns. Farmers in Western Kenya have continued to embrace coffee farming as a way of winning themselves off sugarcane.
Poor pricing of coffee is one of the greatest challenges that farmers face, especially on the global market. As these farmers were trained on good husbandry, they learnt a lot about the expectations of the international market, because the quality of the bean plays a great role in determining the price the coffee fetches.
Some of our producers have been using some products which are not allowed in the consuming countries. One of those products is herbicide by the name of 2,4-D. 2,4-D has been known or has been associated with cancer, and I did inform the farmers that we must eradicate the use of that herbicide, because different countries or different consuming countries like Japan, we had the Japan Coffee Association visiting us this week, and they are very concerned about that product and we should stop it forthwith.
Currently, the world's coffee production is experiencing a glut. In 2018, 172 million bags of coffee bags were produced worldwide against a demand of 163 million bags of coffee. This has seen coffee prices shrink to the lowest price in 12 years.
Wengine wetu wanatuletea kahawa which is under dried. Unakuta mwingine analeta kahawa ikiwa 13-14% moisture content. That is not the right way. Coffee should be brought to us at 10.5. Ikiwa imezidi sana, wacha iwe 11%. Wengine wanatuletea kahawa which is over dried. Sasa ukituletea kahawa ikiwa na 7% moisture content, umepoteza 3.5 to 4% of the weight of the coffee, and that also determines the price which you pay your farmer.
Coffee farming has been on a rise in Western Kenya, offering the much-needed alternative to maize and sugarcane farming, whose industries have been problematic.
Ukulima wa kahawa ni mzuri kushinda ukulima wa mahindi. Kwa hivyo tena mti wa kahawa uko pale uko pale katika miaka yote.
Even as coffee remains a top foreign exchange earner in the country, many farmers are yet to gain the skills and knowledge of maximizing on their earnings. Lois Wangoi, NTV Business, Eldoret.
That story leads us to our next break. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to NTV Tonight. Friends and family gathered at the All Saints Cathedral in Nairobi to mourn Mzee Tobiko Ole Paloshe, the father of Environment CS Keriako Tobiko, who died on the 15th of May, aged 96. Tobiko was remembered as a strict father, expected of a Maasai man. He was also eulogized as a humble, hardworking father who cherished education and shunned ethnic practices that were detrimental to the girl child's development. Tobiko had been diagnosed with advanced colon cancer in 2002, but rigorous chemotherapy kept him alive. he succumbed to kidney and heart-related conditions. May his soul rest in eternal peace. We take a break and sports is up next.
Here on NTV Sport. A very good evening to you. I'm Ida Waringa. Now, Kenya Sevens will get one last shot to avoid relegation from the World Sevens Series in the 10th and final leg of the 2018-2019 HSBC World Rugby Sevens Series set for the coming weekend. Kenya is in Pool B for Paris Sevens alongside South Africa, fellow relegation-threatened Wales and Australia. Wales and Kenya are placed in 13th and 14th on the camp.
My message to the Harambee Stars, we wish them well. We're happy that all stakeholders came together to support the national team. We had a full stadium towards their participation for AFCON, and we will still rally behind the national team. We appreciate the support that the government has given the team, and it's now upon the technical bench and the players to give it their all and make sure Kenya performs well in the AFCON.
Go, 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 Harambee Stars. And fans of English clubs Manchester United and Arsenal in Turkana weren't too happy with how the Premier League season ended for both teams and decided to take matters into their own hands. It started as what was an argument amongst the locals and finally escalated to the formation of a committee that included FKF branch officials whose purpose was to organize a duel between the two factions to see who would emerge stronger, while hundreds of fans turned up to see Arsenal Turkana beat Manchester United Turkana 1-0 at the GK Prisons ground. While having fun, the aim was to also help change the commonplace narrative of Turkana and inform that there are indeed different things to enjoy in the county. Let's move on. And the second round of the Menengai Lemon Karting Club Championship came to an end at the TGRV racetrack in Maimahio. Ranbir Dadley followed up his fastest qualifying time by beating Kavir Bogle and female driver Kiana Rajput to a scintillating 50cc podium. Meanwhile, in the 60cc Kama class, Ramnik Bati beat Ethan and Sonny siblings Sevi and Sorav to second, third and fourth respectively. Autocross champion Yuvraj Rajput aka UV was all smiles with back-to-back success in the 60cc IAME class. He beat Shane Chandria to second position. To some golf now, and there will be one more competitive event for local professional golfers ahead of this year's KCB Karen Masters in late June. The Crown Paints Invitational is set for June 4th to 7th. A field of about 42 pros are expected to battle it out for the top prize of 150,000 shillings. There will be a cut after the second round, where the top 20 and ties will proceed to the last two rounds. It will be taking place a week before the final leg of the KCB Road to Karen Masters Series at Royal Nairobi Golf Club from June 13th to 15th, where the top 20 pros in the order of merit based on the 4 events will have played. Well, that does it for tonight, but just a quick update. Aston Villa have been promoted to the English Premier League, this after beating Derby County 2-1. So, former Chelsea legend and captain John Terry is back in the English Premier League. That does it, though. Ida Waringa, it's back to Dennis.
Well, thank you very much, Ida. Prepping the whole day today is Mark Masai, who's on the other side of the studio, coming on Press Pass that's coming up in a few minutes. Today, they're looking at how the fake goal story has been covered by journalists. You don't want to miss that. Our sign language presenter tonight was David Agondoa. Mine, it's Dennis Okari. Have a good night. Enjoy your viewing.